It's retarded that they think that we're going to miss the bolt release, because it's a ping pong paddle, right? There's the button that you press that will release the bolt, and then the one beneath that. It's a part of the same assembly, but they serve two different purposes. The other one, you push it in, and that's to lock the bolt back to the rear, and that is an actual taut drill for when you got double feeds or something like that, and you do your cock lock drop. So they understand that you can put your thumb on a button that is, I think, 90% smaller than the actual bolt release, but no. You have to drop the bolt with the charging handle. Otherwise, you're doing your drill wrong, and you're wrong.
Welcome to How I Embraced the Suck, a podcast where you get to hear from veterans what life in the military is really like. I am your host, Walt, and before we start, you should know that I do not censor the show in any way. You have been warned.
No, I don't think they did any actual beach landings. I know for sure, because this was actually kind of cool. We had a surviving member from our unit from World War II, and he only just passed like a year ago, but we would someone in my unit had access to a Bren light machine gun with like the whole kit and the tripod and magazine.
Oh, really?
Things like that. Yeah, and they brought him over to him. It's his first time he's touched it since the war and things like that. But
wow.
We were kind of a heavy weapons. I don't think company's the right term. I kind of forgotten, and I never really fully understood. I understood the smaller level stuff, but building up higher to brigades, armies, and things like that, it just kind of goes right over my head.
Right.
But I know we were in Italy, and there was one decisive engagement. This is one that we brought up a lot of times just to kind of use it as a comparison to things we can do with the weapons we have now. We had our Bren guns set up, and we were firing onto some street intersection, just like a 3-round burst every, I don't know, couple of seconds. It wasn't consistent, sustained fire, but if you walked out into that intersection, you were liable to get shot. So we kind of denied the area for them, but we were shooting that. It was over 2.5 kilometers away. It's kind of it's not direct fire. It's literally indirect fire with a machine gun.
Right.
Which, until you hear an example of someone doing it, you would never really think of it, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember reading in World War I they would do that. They'd set the machine guns up, and they'd limit the traverse and fix the elevation with set screws or whatever, and then they just, for hours, they just go through belts of ammo, just going left, right, left.
Yeah.
They'd figure out where they were landing, and then just consider that area a death zone, just to deny the area.
Exactly, it's a great way to deny the area, and if you think about it in terms of economics, it's not as expensive as, say, dropping a bomb or actually sending people out into that area to physically hold on to it with, actual troops, personnel, things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, not only is a bomb expensive, but you got to get it there.
Yeah, the manufacturing the bomb, getting the bomb into the country, getting it onto the plane, it's
right.
Until you join the military and you actually kind of get in there and you can sort of see it. Personally, I never really thought of that kind of stuff before, ever.
Yeah.
But it is just kind of the way I'm wired. I like to think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, today, if the listener hasn't realized, today is a little different. Today we have a former member of the Canadian Armed Forces with us, Mark. How's it going?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Great. Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is gonna be fun. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I will add a caveat. I wasn't in the regular military. I was just in the reserve force. It's a little bit different.
Okay. Is that?
Yeah.
How similar is that to American reserves? Do you know?
Now, I'm not entirely sure about American reserves because I know there's regular force Army units, regular force Marine units. I know I've heard of some like reserve Marine units, and I don't know if the National Guard is the reserve unit for all the Army or something like that. So I don't know exactly how it works. But from my imagining,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that the Canadian Reserves is most similar to the National Guard,
Okay,
because
sure.
it's kind of weird. It's like it's literally a part-time soldier. The statement they say on like their advertisements or whatever, it's like one night a week, one weekend a month of like actual training. And now
Okay.
the one night a week is normally a consistent thing, but just with the time that I joined and goings on in the world at that particular time, the weekend thing is really hit or miss.
Oh,
Like,
okay, sure. Yeah, I think the American reserves say one weekend a month and like 2 weeks a year. I think is kind of their default thing.
yeah, we do have we like it's called I think it's called full-time summer employment. So basically from I think it doesn't start in May. I think it starts in June and it goes to the end of August. So as a reservist, if you wanted to work for that, that's 4 months, right? Because I'm pretty sure it's a 4 month period. Regardless,
Sure.
if you wanted work from that time, they would find something for you. Like even if
okay.
it's like just like bitch duty, peeling potatoes or washing dishes, all the way up to like working with like reconnaissance people and things like that, or just doing some trade courses to further you in your career.
Okay, sure. So are you under? Yeah, are you under the same command structure? Because I think in America, and what do I know? I think reserves are under pretty much the same command structure, but like National Guard is under a slightly different
Yeah, the
structure.
National
Like
Guard's under the state.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, so no, we're still kind of like under the whole military thing.
Okay.
Like operationally, for domestic operations, basically there's something called op lentis, which basically anytime there's some kind of natural disaster, typically hurricanes, that is the Canadian military's response to that. And basically, like if your reserve unit is based in New Brunswick, let's say, you're going to be staying in New Brunswick. You're not going to be going to anywhere else in the province. Like, yeah, you might go like an hour or 2 or 3 across the province, but you're not going into a different province. And province is the Canadian equivalent of a state, for those who don't know.
Yeah, just bigger mostly.
Yeah. It's a few tiny ones, but a lot of them are a lot bigger.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, so what's kind of like your background? Why do you join, and what's your thoughts there?
I always watched action movies as a kid. Like a lot of kids, played a lot of COD, things like that. I always liked guns, always liked the military, like the idea of it, going out and being a professional fighting force and things like that. It always intrigued me. And then as I got a little bit older, I personally, I played hockey, like, surprisingly not like every Canadian, but as every true Canadian plays hockey. But I kind of started to view the military the same way I would try to view hockey. Like I didn't play the highest level hockey out there, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to be the best I possibly can be. So I kind of went in there with the mentality of being the best line infantryman that I could possibly be, to be as lethal as possible as one man on his own could be. Not that we operate on our own, but
Right. Huh.
Because like the infantryman, like I think it's like one of the oldest trades in recorded human history. Like one of the first ever jobs was like some kind of mercenary or something like that.
Oh, sure, that makes sense. Yeah, it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, and I've always heard like random like straw man arguments saying like, oh, the infantry is not going to exist anymore. It's like, no, like the infantry is literally always going to exist, like straight up. So
right, Right. It's like in the 60s they were pulling guns off of fighter planes. The day of the gun is past and everything, and then 10,
Yeah,
20 years later.
throwing the gun back on.
Yeah. I think the Brits took a little longer to come to reality, but like there were F4s made without guns, and then they were mounting gun pods underneath, and it's like, no, actually these are handy.
Yeah, it's
So
always interesting seeing people going against the grain, and like most of the time when people go against the grain, like it doesn't work. Like you said, that example with the gun there, or I can use the Canadian military example of, or even American military example of anti-air capabilities, because with us being in the GWAT for
right.
like 21 years or something like that, because it did officially end in December. I don't know if you heard, but
Okay, sure.
didn't actually end. I mean, there's still American soldiers in Somalia and Africa and things like that, but
Right.
on paper, it's over. Fighting an insurgency that has like no vehicles, basically, period, like a few dirt bikes and trucks and things like that. You can understand why you would get rid of your anti-air capabilities, but that's people getting entrenched in a sort of like a mentality. It's kind of like
Sure.
how generals who were determining the was it the M1903 Springfield rifle, is the bolt action rifle America went into with World War One, and I think two with, well, not some people might have had them in two, but whatever.
Yeah.
They had a magazine cut off for volley fire. Like that was objectively obsolete at that point in history,
Right.
and it was not needed, right?
Right.
It's somewhat similar to the no anti-air defense capability thing. It's like, who are you really trying to fight? Are you trying to be like an actual standing military, or are you just trying to be sort of like a world police organization, which was the GWAT? It was literally just a global police initiative.
Sure. Yeah. To a huge extent.
Yeah.
A lot of people say there's a marked difference between, like, for an example, the invasion of Iraq and then the occupation of Iraq. Like, your missions and in what you're doing, like it's night and day.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Iraq, they started that war with tanks, air capabilities. They got completely like leveled, in a week, but that remnant force was still there, and it literally becomes a policing action because they're insurgents, right? Hiding in with the population. The population is sometimes supporting them, maybe sometimes they're not, but most of the time they are supporting the insurgency. Let's face it.
Right. Yeah. So what was your role? I don't know if the Canadian military has like MOSs or whatever, but did you have like a specific role, or was it?
Yeah. It's not called MOD. It's I can't remember the acronym off the top of my head, but there's like a little tag and then like a 5-digit number that determines what it is. So I joined infantry just because, like I was saying earlier, I wanted to be the most effective, that I could be on my own.
Boots on the ground, etc.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they do have like a testing system that's similar to the ASVAB, but it's not called the ASVAB.
Okay, sure.
Sort of just like basic math questions and then like some like spatial reasoning stuff. And I remember on that test too, there was like a big page. It's like, oh, write down every single drug that you've ever done in your life. So, just lie on it. It's easy.
Right.
But I got my I remember getting my test back, and the guy, my recruiter, he was like, yeah, man, like you can basically do like whatever you want to. Because I mean, like I got good enough grades in school. It wasn't challenging at all, but school sucked. So I didn't want to do anything like that. I wanted to do something that's more real, boots on the ground, working with my hands, things like that. I'm like, no, man, I just want to do the infantry. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I am.
Right.
And he's like, alrighty. So and that was in the springtime of 2019, and I didn't actually get to join until the end of August of 2019 because of that summertime work thing I was talking about.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why, but they just didn't contact me. I guess they don't take people in during that little block of time.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, they're probably they've got a glut of labor for whatever they're already trying to
Yeah, there's
fill slots with regular people, already enlisted people.
Yeah, exactly. There's like the courses, like had I had started the process maybe like 2 months earlier, let's say, I could have got in and got my training done in 2019, but that just wasn't the case.
Right.
Yeah, so training starts with something called a BMQ, it's basic military qualification. So actually, there's one slight caveat I want to throw on that as well. Another difference between the regular force and the reserve force is the reserve force, because it's a part-time force, all of our training gets cut down to like what they determine to be the bare essentials, right? So,
oh, okay, sure.
Like a typical basic training thing would be like I don't know, a 10 or 12 week long period, where like for the first 4 or 5 weeks you don't even go home, you're still there. But for me personally, I had a part-time BMQ, so it would start on Friday evening and then it would end in around Sunday afternoon. So I would just get like a little weekend of basic training bullshit, and then
Really?
just go back to yeah.
And then you go do your job in the week.
Yeah.
And then come back again on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be wild. That's such. I mean, I've got so many questions. Like for you, that'd be weird because you're going from like one environment to a military environment and then back to life. And then for the drill instructors, like the whole concept is they try to break you down.
Yeah.
Like and that's easier to do with a multi-week window of time. But if you just got them for a weekend and then they jump back right in the world and they can go run down to the store and buy a Tasty Freeze whenever they want, you got to start all over again come Friday.
Yeah, they like the first weekend, it wasn't really intense because that's I think it was the right approach to go with, because like everyone there is like new to this. Like every once in a while, there's someone who was previously in the military who has been out long enough that they have to redo the training again. But it was a good slow introduction to all that stuff. And then the second weekend, like that's when the screaming and things like that, mind games, things like that, impossible timings,
Right.
bullshit tasks, like making up stuff. Like this is the instructors get taught this in the instructor instruction. It doesn't matter like if someone has a perfectly clean room, make something up.
Right.
Because you're just supposed to be like harassing them essentially, mentally challenging them, because like how they say, if you can't handle this, how are you going to handle real combat?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You just can't replicate it exactly, so you have to make stuff up.
Yeah. Now mine did go over the winter time, so it did actually go over a Christmas break. So I did get I worked 4 days up until Christmas Eve. So I think I got off like midday on Christmas Eve or the day before, and then I had the 24th, 25th, 26th, and I was back for the 27th, and that was a 5-day thing. And for me personally, because I was in high school when I was doing that, it kind of fucked up my my break time, which I didn't mind it that much. It was kind of fun. I will admit, like people who like break down and cry, or like they're like, oh, the basic stuff, oh, it's so hard, like, oh, they're yelling at us and things like that. Some of those people like do actually leave on their own. Some of them stay,
okay.
But I mean, like, I think my course started with I think it was like 41 or 42 people. We had some people voluntarily leave, like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, which that's another benefit about the reserves.
Right.
You don't want, you're not locked into a contract. Assuming you don't sign a contract, you are not locked into a contract, so you can just not show up, or you could just do that until like they send you a letter saying like, hey, what's up, bro? you have our deer and you're not showing up, and then you can
Right.
leave from there, or just fill out the whatever paperwork you have to do to get out early. But a lot of people we had go down with injuries and things like that, like I don't know, tearing things and things like that. Because of the winter
Sure.
time, there's a bit of ice on the ground, so it's a little bit it's a little bit dangerous, but not really. Just
Right.
if you know how to walk, you're not really going to slip on the ice. With a rucksack on, it's a little bit harder, but at least then you can fall onto your back and you're not going to hurt yourself.
Right. Right. That's interesting. That is just
So
So
one problem with that style of training is something that I learned there called skill fade. So like, if you have a perishable skill or perishable knowledge,
right.
you learn something on weekend 3, and then you go to work or go to school, or I don't know, go home and do nothing for those 5 days, and then you come back. The likelihood of you forgetting that stuff is pretty high. So they would typically like do a test review like as soon as we got back, and then the test would be like the next morning or something like that.
Sure.
But when you start to get into the more technical stuff, like the more real military training and things like that, working with explosives, let's say for example, explosive ordnance disposal, because that was one of the mission taskings of my unit,
Right.
which was optional. You didn't necessarily have to do it, but like I know people there, like it's completely understandable. Like, this is the first time you're ever like holding C4 or something like that, and this is the first time you're ever having to wrap like det cord around it. I don't even know how it works, so like
Right.
I can't describe it accurately, but you can understand how easy it would be to forget that sort of thing without continual practice.
Right. Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. High risk too. It's not like if you mess up, you're just get to do it again.
Yeah, no. Like we've had we were doing a few ranges, and sometimes the explosives they just don't go off. It's just like a mechanical failure. It's not like it's someone's fault. Like it's like too cold out or something like that. So we have like because I said EOD was a part of our mission tasking. It's something called Pioneer. So basically, it's basically a bunch of combat engineer stuff, but you're doing it as an infantryman, and it's not as in depth. Like, I don't mean like bridge building, or you're not working with like pontoons or making extremely like fortified positions.
Sure.
It's basically your infantry with that tool in your tool belt to do those things.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because apparently at some point in history, like, the combat engineer didn't exist. The combat engineer was the infantryman, and then they made that distinction.
Right.
That's my understanding of it. I don't know how correct it is, but we're sort of just kind of like taking those skills back, and they are like genuinely useful things, because it's like breaching. It's like explosive breaching, learning to check for booby traps on doors. Which is applicable to the infantry more than, let's say, building some kind of like, I don't know the name for it, but you build this sort of contraption zip line thing to move equipment across rivers and things like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So you're saying all of that kind of falls under the engineer umbrella, but some of it is so close to an infantryman's job that it makes sense to have infantrymen be skilled in doing it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I do think the military is pretty retarded with a lot of the decisions that it makes, but that one I do truly believe was a good decision.
Yeah, you don't want to be like standing at a door that's locked, and you're like, "Oh, did we bring an engineer?"
Yeah, exactly. Like, for me personally, like I'm pretty sure it would have gotten covered a little bit more in the regular force infantry training, but again, because mine's more condensed and it's a little bit of it is on the weekends. If you do it in the summer, it's a full long course and things like that. But my like what we call CQB, we call it urban ops, which is the blanket term for any operation in an urban area. But everyone just calls CQB urban ops, so I'm going to keep doing it. As far for breaching as we would get taught as just regular infantry, non-pioneer people, it would just be sort of like look at the door, see how the hinges open, what side you should stack up on so you can flow into the room better. and he basically just kicks the door open or just push it open, one of the two, like that. So we were never taught how to deal with properly locked obstacles, and I never did anything real. Like everything I did was like solely training, but we wouldn't have the tools to like deal with a locked obstacle. The assault pioneers guys, they would, and typically how they said that they would do it if we actually had to go do this stuff for real. We would we have a thing called section. It's like a squad. It's like the same size. It's like 8 to 10 men, depending on how many are there, and it can be less because of like retention issues in the military.
Right.
We'll talk about that later. They said they would integrate that guy in there, and then we would basically kind of do like the 0 dark 30, like knock on the helmet, breach her up, and things like that.
Sure.
In an actual operation.
Just making a note here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Otherwise I'll forget.
I understand that. Like I have a lot of great ideas, and then they just sort of flutter out there if I don't put them down.
Right. Yeah. During the day, I'll have a great idea, and if I don't write it down, 10 minutes later I'm like, man, what was that great? I don't remember what that idea was.
And then you start to get upset at yourself.
Right. What am I doing here?
The recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So you were. So I'm assuming you weren't, but whether you were or not, are reserves ever deployed? Are they activated? Is that the right terminology, or what's the system there?
No, I don't have a full understanding of it. I have a pretty good one, just basically hearing from other people who have been on deployments and things like that.
Sure.
So my understanding is, so the greater Canadian military is broken down into 5 divisions, 1 to 5. And I think one's is around Ottawa. 5 is just the east coast of Canada, the Maritimes, and 5 division is exclusively reservists. That no one who is in 5 div is a full-time regular force member unless they are attached to it, and still then they're technically not a part of 5 division. But the way for every other division, they have regular force units and reserve units. So the way it works, you kind of divide the country up into thirds, and then 1/3 for 1 year would be geographically thirds is what I mean. 1/3 would be eligible to be deployed with other units, because like I know we had some forces in Mali. We didn't have any infantrymen there, no infantry at all, which was kind of weird for like a combat zone. But there's I can't remember, Latvia. Latvia is another deployment. It's like near Ukraine, and I think we have guys in Ukraine. We've had them there since like 2014 doing like training stuff and things like that. So
sure,
one year these certain group of people will be eligible to be deployed, and then it moves to the next year, and then it will eventually cycle back, right, every 3 years, I believe.
Sure.
So I had 2 guys from my unit in Latvia during the whole COVID shit. So yeah, they were kind of trapped over there, but I mean honestly, they had a much better time than anyone here in Canada did.
Right. Huh.
But yeah, you're never forced to be on a deployment, because I think there was something in the Iraq War where they kind of forced National Guard members to be deployed over there. I think there was some kind of controversy about that. At the end of the day, for a reservist, it's like always a choice if you want to work, if you don't want to work.
Interesting. Huh.
To an extent, if you like literally never show up, like they're gonna kick you out.
Sure. Yeah. But you could be a reservist, and then, however it would happen, you would be assigned to be activated and deployed, and you could just say no, and they pick somebody else.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, like if you got that opportunity and you said no, you're a fucking retard, because that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like I wanted to be deployed, it wasn't gonna happen just because of timing, the coronavirus, my training, and the fact that I wanted to get out too. I wanted to get deployed, but it was impossible for me to actually get deployed.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and at I can't imagine, but that would reflect on you professionally. Like if you're in the military, especially a combat arm, and you have the opportunity to deploy, and you're like, well, actually, I'm going to stay home. Not like because my wife is expecting or something, but just like I'm just going to stay home and not deploy. Then
Yeah.
they're like, well, why are you here? Like, what's
Exactly.
the
Well,
point,
I
dude?
have that question. I had that question for a lot of people in my unit too, and the answer to that question was college money. But
Oh, sure. Yeah, I could
yeah,
see that.
like
But then what value is the military getting out of you? If you're a combat unit, if you're a combat soldier and you
I don't
don't want
know.
to do what you're there for, then maybe get some other MOS or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, again, a lot of that was just the time that I was in from 2019 to like just last month of
Sure.
January 2023. Um, I can really only count like on my two hands the times that I did, you know, actual infantry training with my unit. Like I can count that on one hand because it literally happened like twice, and I like
Huh.
almost froze to death on one of them because well, it's partially my fault, but it is partially I'm blaming my section commander.
Yeah. So was I mean, I just think of Canada as a great winter wasteland. Was the training further north, or was it just during the winter and that's the way it is up there?
So for me, I was in 5 div, so I'm based out of the Maritimes. If you ever been to the Maritimes, especially Nova Scotia, you know, I'll dox
Okay.
myself a little bit more. I'm in Nova Scotia, but
Sure.
in the wintertime, we have really wet winters. So, you know, it's still like, you know, minus like 5 or something like that. Not too cold, but it's wet. You're going to get wet. It's going to be
Right.
like it's super humid. Like, again, surprisingly humid for the wintertime. The temperature goes up a little bit. There's so much fog in the forest, you can't see anything. So I had an instructor, is one of the instructors I really liked. He said that we are training in like one of the toughest environments to train in on Earth, like straight up. So you get cold, sorry, you get wet, and you get cold, you're gonna freeze and die. So, and it's super
Huh.
simple to do it there because it's constantly raining. Like there was like one weekend we got like 200 millimeters of rain, and now that's 20 centimeters, which is like 2/3 of a foot. So if you can put that
Yeah.
into context,
Wow.
8 inches, that's 8 inches right there.
Right. That's crazy.
So it was actually really good training. The only problem is with the training in Nova Scotia, there's really only one base you can do it, and it's so small that if you go there 3 or 4 times out into the training area, you can get to a point where you're recognizing landmarks, and you technically don't even have to use your map and compass to navigate.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's doing that still bites people in the ass. It happens all the time, so you know you can't get too cocky. But at a certain point, you see the same. You see four corners so many times. You see lazy D so many times. You know
Right.
exactly where you are.
Right. Yeah, right over there is, where this happened, and I remember when this happened
Yeah,
over here.
literally.
Yeah. That's a good point. Which is funny because at least my perception is Canada has so much open land in other places,
Yeah,
untouched land, but it's so far. I'm sure that's the issue. There is the
yeah,
deployment is
exactly.
or the movement
The,
won't happen.
yeah, so like the regular force people who work on those bases are going out into those training areas all the time. Like there's this one base in New Brunswick. It's called Gagetown because it's in Gagetown.
Hmm.
There's a regular force unit from I think the Second Division who lives there. They're 2 RCR, Second Royal Canadian Regiment, and this is all stuff you can Google, by the way. This isn't any secret information at all.
Yeah.
Um, but they have access to Gagetown, and the training area people say is like 1/12 the size of France, which is extremely big.
Whoa. Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah, yeah, that's a place you don't really recognize the landmarks unless you're like in the what's the name? Uh, when you're actually like on the base, with the buildings and things like that, not out in the sticks somewhere.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, there's also like terrain problems too. Like I'm going to use, for example, that base I was talking about in Nova Scotia, the ground there, because infantrymen got to dig a trench, right? There's the area that we set up our defensive on, super sandy, and we could actually dig a proper like 6 foot deep by 6 feet wide by 3 feet in depth trench.
Right.
Whereas in Gagetown, well, depending on where you are in Gagetown, but a lot of it is super rocky. So like personally, we didn't even use pickaxes digging the sand back in Nova Scotia, but in Gagetown, you need a pickaxe just to get a shell scrape to get like 6 inches in the ground, so at least you're a little bit covered from mortars and artillery and just gunshots in general.
Right. Is it like big rocks or little? Are they big enough that you can like scrape a little depression and then build up rocks around you?
I never really got around to doing a lot of that, but from what I think it is, it's a lot of like smaller rocks. It's sort of like clay, essentially.
Oh,
okay. There are areas that have bigger rocks, but most of those are just places that have been dug up. So they're sort of just like a pit in the ground, or just a clearing area for vehicles and things like that.
Sure. Well, and also I guess if you're building a trench or something to protect yourself from an explosion kind of attack, you probably wouldn't want to pile rocks around yourself anyways.
Yeah.
That'd be dumb. Bullets maybe, but not a mortar.
Yeah, exactly. But it is crazy. Like even getting that 6 inches into the ground will increase your survivability so much, even though you don't feel like it will at all.
Sure.
I imagine. Again, I haven't done anything, but like straight up, you just have to look at like footage from Ukraine, like just those really sucky things that you don't want to do will save your life.
Right.
At least for 5 minutes until your trench gets assaulted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, priorities change when bullets are flying. Something you never choose to do in your life. You're like, well, if I do this, I might live, and now it's a big priority.
Exactly.
Huh. So, what? Yeah, I guess it's a little difficult. I'm just abuzz with curiosity about the differences between American and Canadian, but I know little about American and nothing about Canadian, and you know probably less about American than Canadian, so it's hard to draw those comparisons.
Oh, I spend a lot of time, just on YouTube looking at things like that, because like,
sure,
like not to get simpy, but like the Marine Corps, like, oh yeah, they have the smallest budget, oh, and they do the most with it, and that is kind of true. Like
sure.
The actual like webbing gear, the plate carriers and their chest raids and their sort of like battle belts and things like that they use, their helmets as well, and just the cut of their uniform too, where like all the pouches and sewn in pockets on their sleeves and pants are. It's really good. So like I do kind of try to like study them in a way. I do it for anything, just
sure.
Because again, if I want to be the best that I can be, I got to see what like other people are doing, right? Because I don't want to go in with just my perspective and the perspective of others. The perspective by others, I mean the people in my unit or that I work with. And granted, a lot of them do have a lot of experience, and a lot of them do know what they're talking about. But just having more information doesn't hurt, especially once you start to look at enough information to be able to tell when someone doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, or the gear that they buy sucks.
Right.
And then you can make fun of them behind their back.
Yeah. Well, here's one. Do you have separate Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, etc. over in Canada, or no?
So we have the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy.
Oh, okay.
It's just that we have like our specialized units who like for example JTF2. They're kind of like our equivalent of Delta Force in terms of like mission set and things like that. And then we have We have CSOR, the Canadian Special Operations Regiment, which they mirror the Green Berets. Now,
Okay.
there's like particular small groups in like the Navy who do like shipboarding stuff, and I imagine there's probably a unit that does like something that like Navy SEALs typically do. But a lot of that information isn't. It's just not as publicly available as it is in the States. Like the States, all their the advertising, they have a well, obviously they have a much bigger budget, so they can allocate more money to showing themselves off.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it is Army, Navy, and Air Force, and like in my unit, I had higher ranking people in the chain of command who are in the Navy, but they're just working with the Army. Why? I don't know. They just are.
Interesting. Huh. Do you think that's because you're in the reserves and that wouldn't be the case if you were regular Army?
I think it being the reserves makes it more likely to happen. I can't remember. I don't think I ever saw anything like that when I worked with the regular force, but I do imagine it happens somewhere, especially in like an office building or something like that, where it's more like bureaucratic stuff going on than actual work.
Right. Yeah.
Not that I don't have my fair share of like bureaucrat nightmares, even when I'm supposed to be out and doing stuff. But
yeah, no kidding. Huh. Yeah, the example I've heard a lot of when guys go to the range in the they go out for a range day or whatever, and at the end of the day they're like, well, we've got all this ammo left, and if we're gonna turn it back in, we have to count every round, so let's shoot it all.
It's literally true. Like I've been in that situation before too, and then there's sometimes, depending on who's running the range, you could run the range efficiently and not end up in that situation, or you could have a plan in case you end up in that situation to get some more training out of it, as opposed to just being like, dude, here's a whole mag, just dump it, bro. And we do try to, even when we are doing that kind of stuff, it wasn't just, dump the mag. Like, I think I did that maybe like once. It's called like a stance check. It's just to, see if you can fucking shoot good, and I can shoot pretty damn good, so it's super easy. 5.56 is really easy to shoot. If you But if you think it's not, you're like, no offense, you're a pussy, bro.
Right. yeah.
But we would like
hurt.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
Dude, it's a 55 grain bullet, assuming that's what you're shooting. It could be a 62 grain bullet, but it's not very heavy.
Right.
And like the rifle we use it's a M16 derivative, so it's an AR-15. It's a C7A2, so it's
oh yeah.
It's got the 20-inch barrel, H-bar as well, but it has we have green plastic handguards on it, like the two detachable ones with the slip rings, like the older M16s.
Okay, sure.
Before they put rails on it and stuff like that. And then we have a collapsing buttstock on the end, so when you look at it, it sort of looks like the ass end of an M4 with the front end of an M16. But
right.
For the time that we adopted it, it was very, very forward thinking. Like our initial rifle, because we got them with carry handles initially, and then we went to the C7A1 and the C8A1. The C8 is our M4. It has, I think, it has a 15.7 inch barrel. I don't know why. That's equal to something even in millimeters, but I'm talking about guns. I'm not using metric.
Right.
Yeah, so we adopted like a Weaver scope mount on the top for our Elcan C79 scopes.
Okay,
so, like,
sure.
Weaver's like just ever so slightly different than Picatinny. You can put Weaver stuff on Picatinny. I imagine it wouldn't hold zero, but you can't put Picatinny stuff onto Weaver rail. It would not work.
Sure.
But then, just to add a little extra confusion, we have a little tri-rail on the front of the gun to put like lasers and flashlights and things like that. And that's in Picatinny.
That's hilarious. So it just let's see, what could you then you should chamber it in like 7.62 by 39 and just have a real mashup of components.
Yeah. There was one time we were doing some urban operations, and this is before I knew for a fact that it was a Weaver rail. I had an optic for off of my airsoft gun, and I wanted to throw it on top, and I'm like, oh damn, it's not working. And I'm like, I'm looking at the tri rail. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put my aim point T2 out at the end of my barrel on my gun. Yeah, it fit. I didn't leave it on, but it fit.
What do they call it? I think scout rifles or something, like a lot of their
Yeah.
I've seen bolt guns with a no eye relief scope mounted very far forward, and it's like a scout rifle. Yeah, you got the ultimate scout rifle, 20 inches away or 20 plus. Yeah.
And we there's a manufacturer. They made these little sections of Picatinny that you could put onto the detachable plastic handguards for like vertical grips and things like that. I say vertical grips and vertical grips only. Maybe a flashlight, but you have the tri-rail up front, so you want it far forward. Anyways, I'm saying that because they don't hold zero. Obviously, they rattle all the time.
Right.
And I had people that are like I'm not shit talking them. They don't understand it because they're ignorant to it, right?
Right. Sure.
I can personally laugh at them because it's okay because I know, but I'm not gonna be like, oh, you fucking retard. They're like, oh, why don't you put it on top of there? I'm like, man, it won't hold zero. Like, I won't know what I'm shooting at.
Right.
The crazy thing is, I've seen a shitload of pictures from Afghanistan of like some Canadian soldiers and even some American soldiers with their their PET-2s, their laser modules on something that doesn't hold zero, which is
right.
I don't know, it's just weird to me.
Right. Huh.
You see a lot of stuff like that too, like not even just like attaching stuff to the guns, just really retarded ways of like manipulating the gun. Like they for our training thing to actually use it, they don't want you to use the bolt release on the rifle, right? I mean, like, you've shot an AR-15, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever in your life missed hitting the bolt release with your thumb?
I really, it never locks open for me.
Oh yeah.
I usually end on a full chamber.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I don't do like drills. I just mess around. So.
Oh, okay. That's valid. That's valid.
Yeah.
But
I see. I like, if I'm sympathetic to the philosophy that you get a little more forward speed if you utilize the charging handle as opposed to the bolt release. That's what I've heard. So I'm like, well, I can understand that. So if I was to be in that situation, unless I was in a screaming hurry, I'd probably use the charging handle anyways.
Yeah,
but
I've never heard of that. Yeah, the doctrine is to use the charging handle, but it's fucking wrong. Like I'm not gonna pussyfoot around the idea. It's fucking wrong. It's retarded that they think that we're gonna miss the bolt release, because it's a ping pong paddle, right? There's the button that you press that will release the bolt, and then the one beneath that. It's a part of the same assembly, but they serve two different purposes. The other one you push it in, and that's to lock the bolt back to the rear.
Right.
And that is an actual taught drill for when you got double feeds or something like that, and you do your cock lock drop. So they understand that you can put your thumb on a button that is, I think, 90% smaller than the actual bolt release. But no. You have to drop the bolt with the charging handle. Otherwise, you're doing your drill wrong, and you're wrong. I had a guy, I didn't like this guy at all, but this guy actually literally shot a entire box of my personal ammo when we were just having fun out at the range, without asking me either.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, asshole. But we're showing that our weapons are clear. That's reasonable. So we lock our bolts to the rear, throw the gun on safe. You throw the gun on safe if you know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, you'd actually leave it off safe because you know that the gun can't go off. But proper safety and things like that, throw the gun on safe. And they come over your shoulder. They stick their pinky in the chamber in the mag well, and they say clear. And then you drop the bolt and you fire it and you're done. And I hit the bolt release, did it, and he's like, "Do your drills properly." And I didn't say anything because obviously, like, why the fuck would I say anything? But in my head, I'm like, oh, fucking retard, man. Can't stand
the doctrine assumes that under stress I can hit the small part of the bolt hold open, but I cannot hit the large part.
No, I actually can't. It's crazy. Every time I've come up to do it, I miss just to the front of the rifle or the button, and then I reach back too far, and I reach forward, and I keep
You
bouncing,
just
just
can't
hopping
find
right
it.
over it.
Yeah.
No, I don't know where it is. Even
Wow.
like you can come up, hit it with your thumb. That's what I do. And like there's been times that just to try it out, I do it like the Marines kind of teach it with like that karate chop thing or whatever they do, where they slap it.
Oh, okay, sure.
But then that same person, if someone's using the rifle left-handed, wouldn't get mad if someone comes up and uses their middle finger to hit the bolt release when they're doing a reload. Because I worked with one left-handed guy, that's what he would do, which
And that was allowed?
Yeah, it was fine. I literally just didn't listen to him. I just kept hitting the bolt release because I'm like,
right.
I'm not going to make myself work slower. I'm spending so much time talking about it because it really fucking pisses me off. It's just one symptom of the very large problem that is bureaucracy, right? Because you have to do it the way you're told.
Sure.
Like there's one stoppage drill for our C9, and our C9 is an M249, the FN Mini-Me.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a stoppage. I know in the Americans, if the bolt goes forward, like they will just rack it to the rear to bring the action back, and they'll look for like a spent casing or a live round that came out in the belt link.
Okay.
To come out, and they'll keep firing there. But anytime we have a stoppage with the C9, we have to completely unload it. So like rack it back, put it on safe, open the top cover, take out the belt.
Oh wow.
Which, I mean like that, doing that process and then reloading it when you're ready to fire, that process will clear the gun.
Sure.
But the likelihood of that being necessary is, in my eyes, pretty low. Because I did more shooting with blanks than I did with live ammunition, and blanks with the C9 suck ass. Like the gun just straight up doesn't work half the time. But with live ammunition, like it's always worked fine with me, except I was pushing the cartridges too far to the right, so I caused a bunch of failures to feed on my behalf, which was kind of goofy. And you can also put the rifle magazine into it, so you can feed from magazines when you run out of belts. But that just never worked for me. Like I would get like one or two rounds and it would just stop. I believe that's just an inherent design problem with the gun, though. I believe.
Yeah, I've heard that I don't know why exactly, but a lot of people just don't care for it. But
yeah, I totally understand it too. Like I don't care for it. Like, does it work? Yeah, when it does.
Right.
And I understand why they don't update too, because it's pretty expensive to get a whole new machine gun. And is the overall value of getting a new machine gun worth it in the Army's eyes? No, not really. I understand that, but me being the guy who's out there, I want to obviously be going out with the best stuff I can.
If you take a step back, big picture, you're like, I see why you're doing this, but in the moment, you're like, okay,
yeah,
what's up?
Yeah, and I will not ever stop saying what's up.
Right. Huh? Yeah, I think. I haven't thought about this in a while, but I think there's a couple other platforms that will accept a belt and a magazine, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I can think of some, but that it's not really not necessarily relevant.
Yeah, but just it'd be. I can understand how it would cause problems.
Yeah, feeding from the belt is fine. Yeah, the belt is fine. It's just the angles or whatever, and also they're kind of old too.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. So the what do you call it? The LCAN site?
Yeah,
that's
LCAN.
Weaver.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's the LCAN C79. It's not the DR, which is pretty prevalent on the secondhand market, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's not really that good. But
right.
One annoying bureaucracy I can complain about with that optic is, so it's the C79 optic. Initially, it was just the C9 optic because it's a machine gun optic. It weighs like over a pound, straight up. It's from the 80s. And the military was going to buy it explicitly for the machine gun. And like even the American military, they still use it on some of the 249s and 240Bs and things like that.
Okay.
But then someone, I don't know who, but fucking the great idea fairy struck, and it's like, hey, we can put this on our rifles too. And it's like, yeah, like I will admit, I like having that magnification. But for like a fucking pound, especially in the current year, like come on, man. And like
Right.
the C7 is like 10 pounds with it on. Like that's a service rifle that weighs almost as much as an M1 Garand.
Right.
When it first came out, it was like 6.5 pounds. And I know they did changes to it, but it doesn't have to be that heavy. It can be like 8 pounds.
Right.
Pounds matter.
Spoken like a true grunt.
Yeah, no, especially for me, like the heaviest I've ever been in my life was 155 pounds. And when I was doing the training, I was around that. But
Sure.
like I'm wearing like 20 pounds of armor, 10 pounds of web gear on top of that, even though 5 pounds of that is the tactical vest itself.
Right.
I think Nathan from the Seaburn podcast beat that subject to death. It's literal fucking garbage. I hate it with a passion. But yeah, there's 40 pounds there, another 10 pounds with the rifle, and then like 70 pounds with the rucksack. So like, fuck, that's literally as much as me.
Right. Right.
So I feel validated when I complain about that sort of stuff. Like I'm not trying to completely destroy myself here, even though my back is a little fucked up because of it.
Yeah, I often I haven't looked into it, but I've just thought about the difference between what a soldier carries now and what a soldier carried through history, because so often technology or developments or whatever have been like creating the same capabilities in a lighter format, and then what usually ends up is you just carry more of it.
Exactly.
Like when the transition happened from 30-06 to was it directly? I think it was directly to 5.56 for Americans.
It was 308. It went to 308 first, or 7.62 by 51.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. My mistake. Yeah. So when it went from the big caliber to large caliber, all the infantry were like, "Oh, great, lighter weight." No, you just have a larger loadout, is all.
Yeah,
and
but
some
that's important
too.
though. That's how you win the firefight. You got to have more ammo. That's why the new army rifle, like the 6.8, whatever the fuck it's called, 6.8 by 51, I think.
Yeah.
Like, well, logistically speaking, you're carrying less ammo, so you're not going to win the firefight. It's designed to beat body armor against countries that we're not fighting anytime soon. So let's be real. They adopted that cartridge and rifle to be able to defeat the body armor of American citizens. Like, people need to recognize that fact.
Oh, right. No, that's a good point.
Because American citizens, the private American citizen, is the number one holder of body armor in the world as a collective. It's more than like,
really?
Yeah. I saw an infographic about it a little while ago. I can't remember exactly how it was, but I know it's like the populace owns more body armor than like Russia and China combined. Probably America, like the American military combined as well.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah, I see your point then. Yeah, that when the soldiers in Iraq, especially after the first invasion, and maybe even not then, probably hardly ever saw body armor. It was more of the lightweight, shoot and scoot kind of response in general.
Yeah.
That's a good point. For which 5.56 or 7.62 by 39 is perfectly fine. You can handle it. Yeah.
And NATO did make one little problem. I was reading the Black Hawk Down book. It was like the 20th anniversary edition. Can't remember who it was, but someone was complaining about how they wish. I can't remember the I know Gary Gordon. I can't remember the other guy who got the Medal of Honor. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was using an M14, which 7.62 by 51, full power cartridge. And the guy who I was reading his section was saying, "Oh, I wish I had that because it would actually stop the people." The problem is NATO. I think the designation for it. I know the American designation for it's like M80. is it 885 A1 or something like that, whatever the designation for the cartridge is. But it's
Okay.
a semi armor piercing cartridge designed to like if it hits armor, it'll kind of, fuck it up a little bit more than like the previous like M93,
Oh, okay, sure.
which is like the 55 grain.
Right.
The thing is, when that ammo would hit a unarmored target, it would actually explode and fragment in the body the way it's designed to. But when you have that armor piercing bullet, it doesn't break up as easily in the unarmored body. Like, are you getting shot still? Yeah, you're still getting shot. The bullet could be a little bit more effective is all.
I see what you're saying. The attempt at a hybrid gave him kind of the worst of both worlds in a certain a certain point. Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
Huh.
I will not speak again. That's like the third time I've said it. I haven't shot anyone. I didn't do anything.
Sure. Yeah.
I did air quotes coronavirus relief, which was like nothing, but
Oh, okay. So
we could
sounds
go
like an actual is that considered a deployment, or is it just like a what's that called?
Well, I don't
relief.
I don't know if they would. It was a deployment. I don't know if they would give it a different term because it was in our own country, but I don't think so. So I'm pretty sure it is a deployment. So the Canadian military wide. It was called Operation Laser. Really cool name.
Yeah, yeah.
But
that was my first thought too.
Yeah. So that was their response to the coronavirus pandemic. And I mean, like, if you have a fucking brain on your head, you already know all the shit. I don't need to fucking preach to you about, jabs and things like that. But for me personally, my there were actually two op lasers. There was 1 and 2. Now I couldn't get onto the first one because you had to have your basic military qualification complete. But the shutdown happened on the last weekend of my BMQ.
Oh,
so I was left in the dust for that. And then they started training again. I got finished, and then they're like, "Hey, we're starting up another one." And I'm like, "Sure, I'll do it. I'm in high school right now. Does that matter?" No. So I was getting paid to go to high school, which is really dope.
Right.
And then someone at the finance office or someone in charge of finances at my unit, they're like, "Okay, well, we have these like 14, 16 guys here who are standing by doing nothing. And we have work in our building that needs to be done. So why would we bring in some other people on just day-to-day work when we can take these people on contract to come in and work?" So then we started working in our armories, and for me it was nice. I got to miss more school, which was any second spent out of public education, aka state mandated psychological torture, is a win in my eyes.
Not many people get paid by the military to go to school, but even fewer get paid to miss school.
Yeah, I know. I felt, I won't lie, I was really high on my horse then.
Yeah, nice. Huh.
Yeah, but we did that work, and then they kind of just shuffled us around like how they would do it to someone on full-time summer employment, because that time did hit. And then eventually I did get deployed. I got deployed to Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, which is like, there's fucking nothing there. Like 90% of Nova Scotia is undeveloped.
Right.
Straight up.
Right.
And then like Halifax, the main city, is like the biggest spot there. Yarmouth is like a fucking, I don't know, 2-hour drive or something from there. But we showed up there to like they had it in a hockey rink. It was where they were just doing some testing and things like that. And we were there for 7 days. We only worked the first 3 days because, like, straight up, they didn't need us. Like, the province made a call to the military for help, and I think there were like some of my buddies went to some other places, and apparently they did a lot more working than what we did. But for me personally, I sat next to a security guard who was already there.
Right.
I had someone kind of just pointing, telling someone where to go, even though it was completely obvious where you were supposed to go.
Right.
I had someone who would be at the front of the building where an elevator was and would help people. And he took one person in the whole time. and then someone by the exit with a baseball pitch counter just to count how many people came through the testing place.
Oh my goodness,
Like,
that'd be frustrating. You know, you
yeah,
just feel like you're. Why are we here? What are we doing?
exactly.
Yeah.
And then they and then the doctors there, whoever's in charge of it on the civilian side, was like, oh, we don't really need you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you just kind of hung out at the hotel. It was a little bit of fun. And I got to miss more school too, so
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It makes me wonder if, I don't know if that works with the American reserves to go to be in high school while you're, because I know you can join early. You can get like a waiver and join at 17.
Yeah,
But I don't know if you can like, for example, go to reserve boot camp during the summer and then finish out your school year. I have no idea.
I don't know how it works for the Americans. I know for the Canadians, you have to have grade 10 like schooling completed or an equivalent of, because Quebec is a little bit different. Their schooling system, it goes grade primary to grade 11, and then their grade 12, which they still have to do, is some kind of university course or some kind of bullshit like that. But
Okay.
you have to be 16, have your grade 10 or equivalent, and your parents' consent to join the reserves. And you can only do that to
Sure.
the reserves. You can't, as a 16-year-old, if you meet all those things, you can't join the regular force. You can only join the reserve force.
Can you join at 17 like in America, the regular force, or does it has to be 18?
Not entirely sure. I
Okay.
think it is. I think it is 18. But I don't see why it could not be 17. Because I mean, there's 17 years. I think if you have your GED or whatever, you can go join. You might still need your parents' agreement,
Sure.
but that wasn't my personal situation, so I can't speak on it.
Sure. Huh. Yeah, you mentioned retention. What's
A retention shit.
earlier? Okay.
Like for the regular force, a lot of people will just sign, like they'll sign their initial 3-year contract, and then most of them will just bounce right away. And it's it's for the same reasons that it is in the States, like PC culture, all that bullshit,
Sure.
things like that. Just on people being unsatisfied in their work environment, and for me it was the whole coronavirus thing. I mean, like I said, so I knew about it. I followed Atlas News in December 2019. I saw him posting about it in 2019. So I think there's like for people who would end up seeing through the whole scam, it takes like 3 to 4 months. So if you knew about it in March, it would be January, February,
sure.
March, April. Yeah, you get what I mean. So I knew
May
about it
or
earlier.
June,
So
yeah.
so I saw through it earlier.
Gotcha.
And I mean, like I did see the writing on the wall. Like I knew the jab was coming. But I don't know why. But oh my goodness, I'll come clean. Like I got 2 doses of the jab for our democracy.
Right.
And it was the 2 worst mistakes in my entire life. Nothing will ever top that, because I fundamentally betrayed myself and what I believe in when I had that happen to me.
Sure.
And I was one of those guys like, man, I'm not getting that shit. Man, they ain't putting that shit in my body. And then like the time came around, and I just kind of let it happen.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure why. I think a part of it is I can't remember. There was like someone who's like in the tactical community on Instagram. It might have been like Fieldcraft Survival or something like that. Not to throw them onto the bus, but they said certain people who are a member of that organization have said really fucking stupid stuff. And I think it was one of them who said loyalty over integrity. And I completely disagree with that, because that's probably a contributing factor, because no one around me, I was the only one who was really saying things like that, and no one I know personally put up a fight. I do know that you don't need a jab to join the Canadian military anymore, and just recently they started letting unjabbed soldiers back to work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
because they're fucking hurting hard, because they've
Right.
attacked their main demographic of people who would actually join up the military to go fucking fight. Because like at the end of the day, as an infantryman or just any combat arms, your job is to kill people. Like I'm not saying that. Whenever I say it to like someone I meet or like a family member or something like that, I say it like I'm not over here being like, yeah, man, I'm one of Odin's fucking wolves, Till Van Halen, brother, yeah, like not like that. Like no, I recognize that my job, if I had to have done it, would have been to kill people. Like you got to be a little bit mature to like recognize that. And a lot of the people who are mature enough to recognize that and can say, yeah, I guess I am okay with killing people, they fucking attack them. They've ostracized them completely. Like, why would you join a military that overtly like hates you? Oh, I think I lost you there. I think you're muted.
Yep, I was. Now I'm
Yeah,
back.
we're back.
Let's be real. It's probably better that way. Huh. Yeah, it's interesting. The kind of dichotomy there of needing a certain group, but also having policies that greatly discourage that same group from joining.
Yeah,
and then you're like, well, why is retention so bad? It's like, well, I mean, what's more important to you?
yeah, that is just one. That even is just one factor of like the retention. Like, if they can make like military life just that little bit better, it'd be so good. Like more people would stay in. Just that people are getting out because they're fucking frustrated because things that they view as like major fucking problems. Granted, not everything that one person thinks is a problem is a problem. Like I can recognize that about myself.
Sure.
Like there's a new uniform thing coming out. I'm just so jaded at this point. I've like fucking picked it apart a lot. I can get into that later, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter all that much. But if they could just make the quality of life. There was this I don't know if you heard, but I can't remember the general's name. General Vance, that's what it was. That's his name. He created this thing called Op Honor. So it's Operation Honor. So it's the fight against, I don't know, like sexual harassment or all the fucking buzz point things like that in the military. Now, like I'm saying this because it's true. Like there's officers in the Canadian military, and I know for a fact, I can't say for a fact, I don't know names in the Canadian military, but if I researched it on Google, I know for a fact I could find American soldiers doing this, like officers literally raping people and like nothing's happening.
Right.
But an enlisted men can make a fucking sexist joke, and like they will actually get in shit. People have been charged, like they've been like they're not allowed to work, or they're losing out on pay, or they get some bitch duty. They have to like come in on a weekend and like sit behind a desk and do nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Which I mean, like you know, they'd probably be sitting behind a desk doing nothing, except the nothing would be like fucking playing a video game or something like that. But that's aside the point.
Right.
But the thing is, General Vance had a relationship with this guy is our top military guy, period. Okay. Had a relationship with a female corporal, to my knowledge. And now, like, it wasn't unconsensual. It was a consensual relationship, but something about like the power dynamic or like conflict of interest or something like that.
Sure.
So he implemented Op Honor and then got Op Honor himself. And then when that happens, he gets fired. So we get a new CDS, Chief of Defense Staff. That's the name for the highest military person.
Okay.
We get a new CDS, and then he gets Op Honored like a week later.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah, it was like back to back.
Like that's wild.
It literally happened like 2 years ago or something like that at this point, and it just barely made the news here in Canada. So I don't imagine anyone in the States knows about it.
Sure. Sure. And you're saying because of their position, they might have suffered some repercussions, but it didn't make the news. Whereas if it had been somebody else, it would have been all over the news. Like, look at this problem.
Yeah, like there would be like just every once in a while, like a random news article would talk about the problems of it in like the junior ranks mess, which is like where the lower enlisted is.
Sure.
Because, well, first of all, there's more lower enlisted than any other rank in any military on the face of the earth. But I mean, like, we're young people. We're you would expect us to be that sort of like warrior mentality. You know, I know it's really cringe to say that, but like people who grew up like playing like Modern Warfare 2 and getting called a faggot when they were like 9,
Right.
still in grade school. Like we're desensitized to it. Like me personally, if people can't handle, if I say a word, any word, like slur, upsetting, profanity, or even just a statement that makes people upset, if you chose to get upset at that, it's not my fault. I haven't done anything wrong. You chose to get upset about that. Like
Sure.
it's like I'll use as an example, like African Americans, the ones who, when they actually encounter like a real racist person who's like throwing the M-bomb at them and things like that, and they don't react, like I have mad respect for that person, because they have, that shows they have a lot more emotional maturity and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
So they're going after they're being super anti-mature when they're going after those people making those jokes and things like that. Like I've said a shitload of fucked up stuff in my life. Like you've seen Generation Kill. Like
Yeah.
Like we never saw any dead bodies or anything like that. We never killed anyone, but we're still in a stressful situation, and you want to prepare yourself for that, and that's how you would cope with it.
Right.
It's humor. Like humor gets you through dark times.
Hmm.
But after that second CDS got op honored, we got a new one. I don't know his name, and then op honor was removed from the Canadian military.
Oh, really?
Ended. Yeah, because it was a well, I mean, it was obvious. It's obviously a complete failure. Like I know about people like at that base in Nova Scotia. Like I know there was like some rapes that have happened there in the past, and like not even too far distance past. And
Sure.
it's not like it's a daily occurrence or anything like that. It's not like it's a systemic problem. Like it is a problem. It is in the system. Maybe it's a
Right.
systemic problem by that definition, but
Sure.
like people get sexually harassed and like even like raped at like normal corporate jobs and things like that.
Yeah.
Like
Huh.
I don't mean to say this as like it's okay, but it's normal. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. And
Yeah.
op honor didn't work when it comes to protecting the individual, but it worked too well against the higher brass. So they're like, well, we don't like this anymore. Let's get
Yeah.
rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was a fun time to be in the military. Literally, your top guy, your two top guys back to back,
Right.
getting op honor. It's like, man, what the fuck is going on?
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, and then you know, yeah, that just contributes to
Yeah,
what
the
am I trying
leaving
to say?
problem.
Yeah.
Like the retention problem. There was I can't remember her name or her rank, but she was a pretty high ranking officer, and like she did a whole like really professional like she basically said, "Fuck you, I'm leaving," but in like an extremely professional way. And like
Okay.
that did get a seemingly a little bit of more mainstream news coverage here in Canada. Like people who weren't in the military, I mentioned it to them and like, oh yeah, I heard about that. But
Right.
like that was one of the things that came out about it, or it came out because of, or a repercussion of, you know, the leadership failure and the whole op honor thing. And
Right.
my unit's response to that was we had a little like sort of, I don't know, like group talk, literally something straight out of like grade school, where we all had like our own little whiteboard, and we would write down some ideas about a subject onto it, and then we would like, you know, share it with the class in a way. I mean, like that didn't
Right.
really,
Right.
I didn't do anything, but you know, at least I guess we tried. What can you
Huh.
do? Like, what can you do in that situation though? Like, I can totally understand like why you would like that didn't do anything, but at least like it was an attempt was made.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It against a huge, especially like a bureaucracy, but any kind of massive uh movement, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's easy to just, or it's understandable for that to be the response. Like, what can I do to change this? You know, I I understand, but you I think what's important, what has affected me a lot, is realizing that while individuals can sway world events, it's unlikely that I'm going to. All I can be responsible for is me and my actions. So,
Hmm.
to what you were saying earlier about the whole loyalty and integrity thing, integrity is important, like you were saying. If you don't have integrity, then a lot of what you're doing is has less meaning, I guess.
Yeah.
So even though actions I take likely will not affect world events or even local events, I still know that I have the personal integrity and I'm being consistent with my values, and that's my goal, not to change the world, but
Hmm.
to
To
be
change your
consistent.
world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's
I feel you. It's like, well, I can't change anything, and that's true in a global sense for almost everybody. But yeah, you can definitely change yourself and affect those around you.
that's really all that matters, though. Like, you are your own world, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
me personally, that's why I had such a hard time like dealing with like what I let happen to me. Fortunately, I paid out of pocket to go to a cardiologist because well, first of all, I'd have to wear a mask if I still have to wear a fucking mask if I go to hospital in this
mm.
country. I don't know how it is in the states. Don't really care. But the jabtocracy is not over, and it will never ever be over, which is as a gut check and a reality that I've had to let sink in. But
Yeah,
they wouldn't take me to public hospital. At least I don't think. When I'm staying here, like, yeah, I think I have a vaccine injury. Um,
right.
it's pains in my chest. Never appeared before the jab. But the cardiologist said my heart's fucking fine.
Huh.
Could it be
Sure.
stress of me overthinking, the possible damage that would have happened to me? It could be,
Right.
but
Right.
that damage is 100% possible and is real and has happened and fucked up a lot of people. Um, but I guess we'll blow past that crime against humanity. I guess. Um, just what I got to keep telling myself, like, oh, my white blood cells are so strong, they fought off on against the heavy metals in the vaccine.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. 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 No, I feel you. It's yeah. How to deal with it and how to respond to it. Yeah. Hmm.
Personally, like, I didn't treat it the way that I wanted to at the time because I was in the military. I had that whole like loyalty, integrity thing because, like, I wanted to be a good
Sure.
soldier and things like that. Like, I'd speak out about it when I'm like with my friends or my peer groups and things like that, but I wasn't actively going to like the trucker rally or any other protest that appeared at any point in time
Sure.
because I get
Sure.
like God forbid I get caught there. Like, I don't know, like maybe I'm the one who threw a pebble at the prime minister, and now I'm under
Right.
investigation. Getting charged on the civilian and military side would be not a fun time.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. No kidding.
yeah, but my response to that is like I've seen how people have conducted themselves these past 3 years, and the people who have conducted themselves in ways that I view to be bad, they fuck you. Like, I don't want you in my life. I
Sure.
literally don't care if it's family because a lot of it is family. I'm extremely disgusted in their actions. I don't
Mm.
care what they say. It will never change. And I will never forget the things that they said to me too because of what I was voicing.
Sure.
And I do 100% believe that I am on the right side of history when I'm talking about this stuff. I just didn't have the confidence to do it back then and actually stand up for myself and put my foot down and be like, no, I am not getting jabbed to be in the military.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, especially for us down here in America, at least my viewpoint of Canada, it felt much more hopeless for an individual Canadian to be
Oh
like,
yeah,
well, I'm
no,
not going. I
that is the
choose not
word to
to.
describe my life. I was completely hopeless. Like, I was literally in the fucking gutter, like the worst I've ever felt in my entire life. Like,
Yeah.
I just I felt completely alone that whole time. Like, and I felt
Yeah.
like everyone around me was, retarded. And yeah, it did kind of make me like, upset and mad, especially about strangers. but it was more like I felt upset for my family because they're just letting this shit fucking happen to them, and yeah, like I had to fight hard to get my mother to allow me to have friends over. Like,
Oh, sure. Right.
like come on, man. Like, serious? Like, fine, we'll go fucking hang out in my buddy's car. But
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
But yeah, that is the silver lining to the entire thing. It's me personally. I'm more confident in what I believe to be right and what I know to be true, and I don't care what other people think about it.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's regardless of the viewpoint that people have. I think that is one result of the last several years is just a, maybe for good or ill, a widening of the divisions between viewpoints, and a greater acceptance of, it is what it is, as opposed to trying to convince people, which
Yeah,
I don't know. I that could be viewed as a bad thing, and also could be viewed as a good thing, I think.
I'm gonna choose to view it as a good thing, because I know if it keeps going, one of these days something bad's gonna happen, but it has to get worse before it can get better, right?
Right. Sure.
And like, fuck, it's your own life. Like, why would you spend your life surrounded by people that you don't like, or whose goals are not this similar to yours, or people who are literally ideologically opposed to you to the point where they would let a boot, fucking just do whatever the fuck it wants to you. And fuck you for not getting jabbed too. You killed my grandma.
Right. Right.
Like, I don't want to be around those people anymore.
Yeah,
It's a waste of
tough.
my time. My time's pretty precious. Because, every second that passes, I have less of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good viewpoint, though. I like that attitude of towards time. It's not just an unlimited resource, but to treat it with value. Huh. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty impactful to probably everybody listening. But yeah. So yeah, was that was your primary impetus to get out? If it hadn't been for that, was your goal to stay in the reserves for forever?
Well,
Career?
yeah, like basically, yeah, I was planning on being a career military person. Like that's what it was for a lot of my life beforehand. And then kind of like a few years before I joined, I want to move to the U.S. like desperately. Unfortunately, the one bad thing that Trump did was make it a little bit harder for Canadians to become American citizens. So if there's
Okay, sure.
any American women out there, hit me up.
You're single and ready to mingle.
Yeah, exactly. No, but what was I getting at? Yeah, because there are other things I wanted to do, so I was starting to already recognize that it wasn't something that I could do forever. I mean, like in an ideal world, like if I could have I said the typical infantry stuff, like, yeah, man, I want to do special forces because it's the toughest fucking thing you can do out there. That's good mentality to have. It's not happening anymore. I'm okay with that. I can buy the gear. I can larp on my own. It's okay. Yeah, but that was my goal. My goal was to go into the reserve force, get my training done, so I'm all qualified. Move over to the regular force, so I would start doing more Army stuff, and then hopefully one day end up in special forces and kind of be at the top of the top. Get that flexibility that we need because it is a bureaucracy. But within every bureaucracy, there's always those hidden corners where
yeah,
you can kind of do what you want. Like me personally, I was the opposing force for a reconnaissance force. So basically, I would stand in a pre-designated area for like 11 hours straight, which is a little boring after like the third hour.
Yeah.
And we were dressed up as like the enemy, things like that. I was wearing my own personal kit, which is objectively better than the shit that they would issue us.
Right.
So that flexibility I'm talking about. There's things that we can change to make our jobs go literally better, but they won't let us have it. Like my unit apparently just now has started letting people wear their own personal bought chest rigs, which is something that I would have liked to done because I spent a shitload of money on it.
Right.
Right. But
Huh.
and even in like the reconnaissance people there, because they were all most of them were from the 2nd Royal Regiment, and from what I got from the people who were part of that unit, that's like the track plan for a lot of them is they join the unit and then they immediately go and do reconnaissance. It's just you get a C8, so you get a little carbine. It's not as heavy. You look super cool. You get to wear a little bit more of your own gear. Like at basis, there were a few people on that course who literally were not wearing a single piece of issued military gear. Everything they were wearing was bought on their own dime.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I like those people because, especially when they're buying gear that is of quality, like good stuff, like not to shit talk like Condor gear or something like that. I will shit talk 511 gear though, except for the backpacks. The backpacks did a pass, but you see people going out there with like cries and like outdoor research, Arc'teryx and things like that. Like it shows that they care about their job.
Sure.
They want to do it better to the point where they're willing to spend thousands of dollars on their own personal gear.
Right.
And then we have a bunch of old head bureaucrats who are like, and to a certain extent, yeah, you probably shouldn't you shouldn't look like you just came out of like a mech store when you're going into combat.
Right.
You probably should wear your uniform, but at least they're smart about it too. They're not out here like wearing, because the area we're training in, multicam doesn't really work that good. And that reminds me, it's going to loop back to that that new Canadian camouflage pattern. I think if you Google it, it's called like Project J or something like that.
Okay.
It is CAD, like it's the exact same layout. However, they just used all the colors from multicam. So they added like 2 extra colors because like CAD Temperate Woodland, which is the green one, uses 4 colors, and Arid, which is our desert one, uses I think like 3. Which another point to be made there. We already had a woodland camouflage and a desert camouflage. Why do we need a 3rd camouflage? That is essentially a mix of the two, because that's what multicam is. It's supposed to be a camouflage that's applicable in lots of areas.
Right.
Now, granted, for other parts of Canada, for other times in the year, because this was around fall time in New Brunswick, it's super green, super dark green, and a lot of dark brown. Now, this uniform is basically light brown. And I would see people like standing, in the woods, and like I can make them out easier because of the uniform they were wearing, as opposed to the people who were wearing the other one. And again, granted, it's a time and place sort of thing, but I don't see a reason to spend tens, I don't know, maybe hundreds of $1 million getting all of those uniforms, buying the new gear, buying our old ass fragmentation vests, which we should have been done with those a long time ago. But fuck it, yeah, let's burn them in the new camo.
Right.
I think there's something. Every piece of Canadian military equipment has to be Canadian. Like we couldn't, if we wanted to, we couldn't go and buy multicam. So I guess we had to make multicam at home like that.
Right. The not invented here syndrome.
Yeah, there's again, Nathan from the Seaburn podcast talked about it a bunch with like I think some jets or something like that, or things like that. It has to be Canadian made. And sometimes that's good. Like our rifles, Dymaco, well, formerly Dymaco, now Colt Canada, like they make really, really good guns. So.
Oh, okay. So in some instances, you can use designs from other countries, but it has to be made in Canada. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So like there was some helicopters and some jets and things like that. I think our F-14s, like I think we use F-14s. I'm not sure, but yeah, they're like
18s.
18s.
Like 18 CF-18s.
Yeah. something like that, some fucking unique Canadian term, or like our Leopard 2s, like our tanks, for example. Now, I didn't meet any tankers. I didn't really talk to them. I talked to like a few people who were in them, and there's like some system that was in the tank from the factory, from whoever makes it in Germany, as like an option. I think it was something for like operating in cold weather. And when we purchased it, it's like you buy the stripped out model because it's a little bit cheaper.
Right.
And then like we had to like re-add something. I don't know. It's just some retarded ass symptom of bureaucracy that otherwise would not exist.
Right. Yeah, the what is it? Purnell's Iron Law of Bureaucracy. I think
something like that.
What is it? I'm going to butcher it, but essentially, as the older bureaucracy gets, a bureaucracy contains two components: people who execute the goal of the bureaucracy and people who maintain the bureaucracy. And the older the bureaucracy gets, the larger the second group gets in comparison to the group that is actually there to do the job.
Yeah.
So you get to a point where the primary goal of the bureaucracy is to maintain itself, and the mission becomes a sideline.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there's like another certain vehicle that we have. It's called like the TAP V, I think it is. Some company in Texas makes it. It's like a 4-wheeled armored vehicle, which doesn't really serve a purpose. I mean, like we already have vehicles that can do the things that it is doing, and it's kind of like doing it worse. But I guess we got a fucking good deal on or some shit.
Right.
But there's a built-in navigational system in there, which it's possible for something in the computer to reset. So you'll pull up your map, and you'll be in the middle of Texas, where it was made.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, it is. And they also just like roll over and catch fire, and like the parking brakes on them just stop working. I know someone. It nearly crushed someone I knew. Like.
Oh, really?
It was parked in an armory. It was where I did my basic training. The parking brake failed, and it just started rolling. Kind of dented some stuff on the wall. Guy got out of the way in time, thankfully.
Wow.
But, yeah. But even when I hear other people on this podcast talking about it, like I think it was like a Marine Corps Air Wing guy talking about their stuff, like you just think this stuff wouldn't happen, and then you witness it.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. People care. This couldn't happen, and then
it happens.
Like, oh well.
It makes you start to question what the word professional means.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, because there's some people, like in any government job, there are some people who like take it seriously, do it right, and are actually like good employees. And when they hopefully come to their senses and go out to the private sector or even start their own business, they're going to thrive. But then there's people there who like basically do like the silent quitting stuff, like the lady at the DMV. It's like, bro, you don't have Form 4 filled out? I can't serve you. You need to go out of line and go get Form 4.
Right.
Yeah, I know you have to go to your home computer and print it off there, but you have to. Like, they're just fucking not doing anything. Like, especially when that lady has Form 4 printed out in a drawer right at her desk that she could pull out and give to the guy.
Right.
Because that's what it feels like a lot of the time. And then there's that other problem of you can't really fire people in the military, so you do end up with the people in positions that they shouldn't be in, and some people just get cornholed into certain things. And I feel bad for some of them, but some of them it's okay. Like maybe they had like a bad injury. Like I know someone, they had like a terminal illness and they were able to fight it off. Great for them. But he can't do any infantry stuff, so he's just relegated to an administrative role.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I do like your point earlier about how even in a bureaucracy, if you have to work in it, and you, for whatever reason you choose to not leave it, it is possible to find niches where there's less bureaucracy going on.
Yeah. The only problem is you won't know where they are until you get to one.
Right. Yeah. They don't advertise for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. they advertise they're getting shut down.
Right. Right. But yeah, once you're there, you're like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. I don't mind this as much.
Yeah, like that reconnaissance thing I did in New Brunswick, or the demo or the opposing force,
Oh yeah.
I genuinely enjoyed that. That was a good amount of fun.
Right.
Especially like,
Even though you're just standing there for 13 hours or whatever,
yeah.
the autonomy and the ability to use your own kit and everything just makes it more interesting.
Oh yeah, we're
If
just
nothing
like
else.
out there having like a bonfire. You know, we're bringing out our camping stools, things like that, playing music, things like that.
Oh,
Lots of fun stuff.
so you were like the whole time you were out, you were acting as if you were the opposing force.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, like
Okay.
we could have like amped it up like 900% and like been like super into it, but like you wouldn't do that unless you're on like a film set. So
Sure.
for the
Sure.
level for what needed to be done was because initially if we spotted the recon guys, we
Uh-huh.
would engage them instantly, and
Right.
then when you're doing so many of those tests and things like that, you will get found out. Like, and again, it's the only way that I would never expect anyone doing that to be perfect 100%. Like, you should be. This is the time to fail in training,
Right.
where the
Right.
only thing happening is someone shooting blanks at you, and there's nothing coming at you. Like, and then
Right.
you just react the way you're supposed to, and like that's good training. But it was happening so much, like it got to the point where they're like, all right, listen, you see him, all right, give him 3 minutes, like just walk around a little bit, come right back there. If they're still there, shoot at them. If they're not, they have done their job correctly. Like even there was a few times I'm sitting on the edge of a tree line for 2 minutes. I swear to God I heard something, and like 2 minutes in, I'm like, boom, there he is, doing exactly what he should be, perfectly still, not moving, because the movement is gonna
Oh,
attract your eye and things like that.
right.
Again, in a real life situation, I would have killed him like straight up. But
Sure.
that's not what our purpose was. The purpose was they're supposed to be able to see us, describe our movements, our size, and what we're doing, what our equipment's like. Are we smoking and joking? Do we look depressed? Just
Sure. Sure.
literally everything, because all that information is important.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if you're just being that guy, just hanging out, basically camping with some duties, some standing guard duties, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I'm like, you probably figured this out. I'm a bit of a gun guy too, but we got some foreign weapons, which was actually kind of cool.
Oh,
We had a few SKSs, which for Canada's, nothing. Oh,
right.
even for America, that's nothing. But we had like a Chinese RPG, and I think we had a legitimate Russian Dragunov, and that was pretty cool.
Oh,
And
yeah. Oh, that'd be fun.
yeah, we didn't have any blanks for them or anything like that. Because like the only blank fire, we have blank fire and adapters. The one that goes on the C7 and the C8, it also goes on the C9, and then the one for our C6, which is an M240 Bravo, excuse me, is a little bit different.
Okay.
Because you could I think they do actually go out and shoot these guns every once in a while, because like the Canadian military has a public social media presence, and they've posted about it a few times, like people going out and shooting Uzis and Mosins and things like that.
Okay. Sure.
Because I believe
But they just don't have blank firing adapters for them.
exactly, yeah. They'd have to like do something inside of the barrel, kind of like how prop guns work.
Oh, okay. Sure.
But they also, I think they do shoot them as a part of an actual trade course for when you become an NCO. It's like some kind of foreign weapons famil. Because I don't know, I guess you're in a foreign country, you capture weapons, you should be able to make them clear, or
right, know where the safety is. Yeah.
Yeah, or if you find yourself in a position where you want to increase your firepower, it'd be nice to be able to know how to use them, especially the machine guns and
rocket sure
launchers,
yeah,
things
that's
like
true.
that. Because those are the main casualty producing weapons that we have access to.
Right.
You can kind of think of a rifleman. His rifle is this isn't my idea, but I kind of agree with it to an extent. It's a personal defense weapon. It's just to sort of kind of protect you. It's not
Sure.
your machine guns and your rocket launchers and your hand grenades are going to kill more people than your rifle. But then your air assets, your artillery, your tanks, your extreme heavy weapons, those are the real casualty producers. There's
Sure.
There's this guy, I think he's called Modern Tactical Shooting on YouTube. I just can't remember his name off the top of my head. But I think he was a Green Beret, and he has a YouTube video talking about why he went out with like a Mark 18. If you don't know what a Mark 18 is, it's a M4, but it's a 10.3 inch barrel or 10.5 inch barrel. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. But what he would say is, like, in a firefight, like, I maybe would fire like 2 or 3 rounds at somewhere where the enemy is or where we believe the fire to be coming from. And then I'm going to move into a position, and I get on my radio and I start talking to helicopters, or I'm talking to planes, jets, warthogs, etc.
Yeah.
I say I agree with that statement to an extent, because like if you're going to be out there like make it like line infantry, you should be able to shoot pretty good. You should be able to actually, like, if you actually get a clean sight on someone and you have enough time to slow down, get your, your trigger pull and things like that. First of all, you as a person should be capable of making that shot. Second of all, your weapon itself should be capable of making that shot as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but that is a good point. If you have all these assets at your disposal as a full blown military, the rifle's not your best tool.
Yeah. Like I don't know. There's probably some like actual statistics from like conflicts that you can search up to further demonstrate this point. But for right now, just trust me, bro.
Yeah, I know. I have heard a lot that artillery is the biggest killer on the battlefield throughout history, even nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's such a massive effect.
Yeah. But you can't let that overshadow the idea, like when it comes down to fighting, like it always is infantry on infantry. So those small arms and the hand grenades and things like that, things you can easily carry on your person, it does matter.
Right. Yeah, bombers can't hold territory.
No. Yeah. No, they cannot. They can put holes in territory, but
Right. Yeah. Huh. Well, cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any did you miss anything or any questions? Yeah. I completely forgot. The one. Yeah.
The answer is no. The answer is no.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but say it for the listener.
Yeah. If a kid, 17 years old or whatever, was to come to you and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about joining the military. What's your advice?" What would your advice be?
Don't, man. Like, you can achieve all, like if you want to go, like, if the reason for joining the military is to like go fight people, volunteer to go to Ukraine. Volunteer with the YPG forces in like Syria. There are people you can probably get on a plane and be fighting within a week.
Right.
If you're going for the military for that, don't fucking bother. Like, all the bureaucracy shit that people complain about is completely valid. It is real. If you want to have commitments outside of it, especially with the regular force, like, you're gonna have to fucking write up a memo to be like, hey man, I want to drive fucking 2 hours away on a weekend or something like that.
Right.
The answer is no. It's always no. However, for Canadians, if you want to try it out, so this is what I have. This is what my father was saying to me, and he actually was right about this too. My recruiter said this as well. If I can go to the reserve first. If I don't like it, like how I said earlier, I just stop showing up. I'm not in a contract. I don't have an obligation of service. I can just get out right away. I could literally like join and then 2 days later leave if I wanted to.
Huh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's like a trial period, kind of.
Yeah. Because like, it is obviously easier to join than it is to get out. Because like me personally, I tried to follow my chain of command properly when I was getting out, where I have my memo typed up and was supposed to get sent up the chain of command up into like I think the commanding officer of the unit. And then a few months passed and nothing happened. So I called my battalion orderly room and I'm like, hey, listen, and this is also after they tried to charge me with being AWOL. I was on an extended leave of absence. Someone must have lost that paperwork and like, hey man, you're going to be fucking AWOL in 30 days. No, I'm not. So I had to call them and deal with that. And then when I'm like, hey, listen, I sent my memo like 2 months ago to release. Are you guys tracking that at all? No, we're not. So I circumvented the chain of command to get out.
Wow.
It's a fucking it's a fucking problem of bureaucracy. It's not worth it. Is like all that historical stuff and the badassery? Yeah, it's there, but like you need to recognize what it's serving. And you're serving like like globalist ideas today. You're supporting basically the World Economic Forum today when you're joining the military. Like,
sure.
Like unironically, because the military is an extension of the government. You know that the government already hates you. You literally already know what their plans are because they announce them. Why would you support it? Especially if you're a person like me who disagrees with it.
Sure. Yeah.
Just don't do it. Go work at a golf course for cash.
Get some real world experience under your belt.
Go to cabinetry school for like a year and then go out and make 6 figures.
Yeah.
You can just make enough money so you can buy the gear on your own. Because I get it, it's fun. I had a lot of fun in the military. Like doing all the actual military stuff, it's fun. But you don't have to be in the military to do it. You can go and do it yourself. And you don't need the permission of anyone to do it because, like, fuck that shit. Like, that Dakota Meyer shit where it's like, oh, you shouldn't be wearing body armor. Like, fuck that shit. Go out and do it.
Right.
It's
well,
fun.
Yeah, like you're saying the most enjoyable time you had, the OPFOR time, was legitimate. If you just had a large group of friends, you could just completely do that all on your own.
Yeah,
and,
straight up.
And I don't know Canada's laws, but I don't know. I mean, you could modify it so you could do almost exactly the same thing and be totally on the up and up if anybody was concerned about it.
If you know your grid location, there's certain types of land. It's called Crown land, which is a government land, but there's certain areas on it where you can fucking do whatever the fuck you want, except for like, I don't know, use explosive reactive targets. I think that's the exact wording they use.
Oh,
certain
okay.
certain areas you can't shoot on, but there's nothing saying you can't throw a rucksack on and all your gear and walk through it.
Right. And like you were saying, if you're just blank firing anyways, I'm sure you could come up with some kind of other solution. I mean, I don't know.
Airsoft, paintball guns.
Yeah.
There's lots of workarounds. It'll never replicate actual combat 1-to-1, but I don't think anything ever will.
I don't think that's possible. and like you were saying, I'm sorry. I was just talking with a friend of mine about the stress that they try to create in training, to simulate that. That's right. He was talking about qualing at the rifle range and how there's only so much they can do. You know, they play loud noises on the loudspeakers and everything, but you know, they aren't shooting at you.
Yeah, you don't hear a supersonic crack above your head.
Yeah.
You're not seeing dirt getting kicked up around you.
Right.
You're not seeing your buddy getting shot, and you yourself are not being shot either.
Yeah. Some things you just can't practice.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Any last thoughts or final points or?
I don't have anything to shout out, but I will say this little dad advice: stop eating seed oils, stop eating processed foods, stop drinking sugar drinks. You become what you eat. Eat fucking good food. Eat real food. Like, that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you for listening to this episode of How I Embraced the Suck. If you enjoyed the show, tell a friend. And as my Girl Scout den mother used to say, stay frosty.
just go and have like an O. Henry bar or a Kit Kat or something like that because there's like veg oil and things like that in it. But I have some like non-GMO jam